trade deadline in your fantasy league is officially here, and you need to be trading away the 5 players in this video before that deadline hits. And we'll start with Kareem Hunt of the Kansas City Chiefs, who for a couple of weeks now we've been saying you have to trade away Kareem Hunt, and all he continues to do is put up 100 yards, maybe a touchdown. This past week he had a bunch of receptions, but here's the deal. It's always been about selling high on these players, especially Kareem Hunt, because there's been this lurking presence of Isaiah Pacheco, and he's now pretty close to coming back. Now here's the deal. We can't say anything bad about Kareem Hunt. Since he took over this backfield in week 5, he's played 5 games. During that time, you can see right here, over 60% of the snaps according to Fantasy Life. You come down to his rush attempts, he's seeing 78% of the backfield carries, 80+% of the backfield carries in 3 straight games. If you take out some of the carries by Mahomes and Xavier Worthy and the rounds, he's seeing 90+% of the carries in some of these games. Like literally one of the best workhorse backs in the NFL. And since week 5, Hunt ranks top 5 in fantasy points per game at the running back position, ahead of guys like Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, and even Kyren Williams. So all of this is of course great for Hunt. He's one of the best backs, currently a league-winning running back, and he would be the rest of the season if it wasn't for Mr. Isaiah Pacheco himself, the former 7th-round pick, the guy who's been a standout running back the past few seasons for the Kansas City Chiefs. If it wasn't for this guy returning soon. And how soon is he returning? Well, as soon as this week, just about a day ago, Isaiah Pacheco has been designated to return from a 21-day practice window. It's been opened. He's available to practice now. We'll see if he actually ends up practicing this week, but he's probably 1 to 2 weeks away from returning to the football field. And sure, that doesn't mean that right away, if he plays in week 12 or 13, that he's immediately going to see 60 to 70% of the snaps. But the moment that he's ready, and it could be week 13 or 14, he's going to take back over this backfield. Because as good as Kareem Hunt has been for fantasy, in real life, like if you actually go out there and watch the film, the dude hasn't been all that good. And that's pretty obvious when you just look at some of these efficiency metrics. Averaging 3.7 yards per carry, 55th in the NFL. Averaging just 4.1 yards per touch, 47th in the NFL. He's really not breaking tackles at all right now, 34th in the NFL in broken tackle rate. Okay, let's look at his explosiveness, 52nd in the NFL in explosive runs. Like, if you actually watch the film on Kareem Hunt, he's doing a great job at getting 3, 4, sometimes 5 yards per carry, but no big plays at all. And that's exactly why when Isaiah Pacheco is ready within a couple of weeks or so, that this is going to be the guy who consistently gets explosive runs, consistently picks up yards after contact. He's the complete opposite of Kareem Hunt from an explosiveness standpoint, and it makes sense when you're 4+ years younger. So right now is the perfect time to be selling Kareem Hunt, in my opinion, off of another 20+ touch game in a tough matchup against Denver. He goes out there, he gets 17 points. He actually sees in this game 7 catches on 8 targets. He only came into this game with 8 targets on the entire season. He had 10 targets in this past game with the 7 catches. I don't think that's going to continue. I think a part of that was Denver's secondary, Patrick Surtain shutting down DeAndre Hopkins, and then just checking it down to Kareem Hunt. So considering the fact that I think you only have another 1 to 2 weeks to get starting running back usage out of Kareem Hunt or workhorse usage, anybody above him right now I would trade for 1-for-1. If you can trade him for Courtland Sutton, I think that's nice. But I think you can probably get a better deal in here. You scroll up a little bit more, you can get a Calvin Ridley in some sort of package deal. Jacoby Myers coming off of the bye week I think is fantastic. Amari Cooper in a buy low situation for Cooper since he hasn't been playing with injury. I think these are all nice options to be targeting in trades for Kareem Hunt. Now let's talk about another player that you should be selling away, and it's a wide receiver. And this man's name is Marvin Harrison Jr., and I know people are going to go crazy in the chat right now. I know people are going to say this was my 2nd-round pick. He's finally producing the last couple of weeks. And listen, I'm not telling you to sell low on this guy. Sell high if you can. We'll give you some examples in a moment, but before we get there, yes, I completely agree with you that Marvin Harrison Jr. has been having some nice performances against a Jets team that has been struggling. Their secondary is nowhere near what it was last year or even at the start of this year. He caught all 5 of his targets for 54 yards and a touchdown. He puts up 16.5 fantasy points in this game. All of that is great to see. He's now gone over, if you look in his last couple of games, we can go to Player Profiler in his game logs. You scroll here, 2 out of his last 3 games, he's producing good fantasy numbers for you. 16.4 was a top 15 number. A couple weeks back, he had 23.1, went over 100 yards, was a top 5 wide receiver on the week. So in 2 out of these last 3 games, you're getting a lot of production out of him. I believe, though, that this has opened up a nice sell high window for Marvin Harrison, who has not been consistent all year long. And not only has he not been consistent, he's not earning volume. Even in a game this past week where he's playing well, he only sees 5 targets. And over his last 5 games, Marvin Harrison is averaging just 5 targets per game and ranks 48th in wide receiver points per game. And that's factoring in these last 2 out of 3 weeks when he's actually producing. Still, borderline a top 50 wide receiver. And it's a little bit discouraging because he has no competition at the wide receiver position. Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, these guys are not earning elite volume. Now, of course, he does have competition with Trey McBride, especially in the short to intermediate parts of the field where Marvin Harrison is just not seeing really any targets right now or not that much. Trey McBride currently leads this team in target share with a 26% target share over those last 5 weeks. He's the guy seeing the big 7+ 7 to 8 plus target games, not Marvin Harrison, and I don't really see when that's going to change. Like, this team's already had its bye week. We've just seen Kyler Murray complete 22 of 24 passes, and even in a game like that, you're only getting 5 targets in a nice matchup for Harrison. It's just the role right now that's concerning for me. Now, we've seen it change a little bit, but as of right now, he ranks 57th in catchable target rate. Just 63% of his targets are catchable, meaning that nearly 1 out of every 3 targets he sees in a game is not catchable because a lot of his production so far this season has just been downfield. That's changed a little bit over the last couple of weeks, and that's encouraging, but it hasn't changed a ton. He's not getting the easy gimme layup targets that increase your fantasy floor and ceiling. So when I say sell high on Marvin Harrison, that's what I mean. If I pull up my rest of season rankings trades tool right here, he's my 47th overall player. If we were to redraft today, I think he would be a late 4th round pick in 12 team leagues. So anybody above him, I would trade him for right now. If you can get George Pickens, I would do that. If you can get some sort of Josh Jacobs deal, heck, Devonta Smith off of a bad game where he only had 14 yards. These are all fantastic trades. Of course, a lot of them are across the same position. Josh Jacobs across different positions makes a lot of sense there as well to maybe fill a need for both teams. Those are the types of deals I would be looking to do right now. Now, that tool I just showed you was my trades tool, my rest of season rankings. It will help you with trades before your deadline. And you could acquire this tool right now as a part of my fantasy blueprint. Over 21,000 other people currently have access to the blueprint this year. It has all the tools that I use in my leagues, and you can use them as well. Now, this blueprint is extremely simple to acquire. You just follow the link in the description below. It says how to get access. You follow these two steps right here. You click the get access button, and it goes to this page where you sign up through one of my 2 partners, either Underdog or Better. And when you sign up through these 2 partners, you get the blueprint absolutely risk-free for the rest of the season. And now here's the thing, a couple of important notes to point out. This is the final video, the final day, the final week of the season that I will have the fantasy blueprint available for new members. It is a one-time payment of $10 when you sign up and deposit through a partner. And if you don't make your fantasy playoffs, it's risk-free. You just reach out and you get your $10 right back, no questions asked. But again, this will be the final week that I am taking on new members for the fantasy blueprint. The 21,000 other people will have access for the rest of the season and all the way through their fantasy playoffs as well. So if you want to get access to this tool and all the other tools like my waiver wire tiers and rankings, weekly rankings and projections, game-by-game matchup notes, Discord access, and a whole lot more, well, you can scan the QR code on the screen. It'll be right here, or click the link in the description below. Now, the next player we got to talk about is another one that might ruffle some feathers because he's a beloved player, and trust me, I have him on a lot of my fantasy teams, and I've done a complete 180 on Bucky Irving. I did not like him as a college prospect, but he has proved me wrong in the NFL. He looks absolutely awesome. Arguably the most exciting football player and running back to watch in all of fantasy right now. Like, I think Saquon Barkley's up there, of course, but man, watching Bucky Irving run is fantastic. Irving currently ranks 2nd in broken tackle rate and top 10 in explosive run rate this season. Simply put, he's a great player, and he's coming off of another great performance where he had 16 touches against beatable 49ers defense. He goes for 86 total yards, a nice breakaway touchdown for him, 17.7 fantasy points in this one. He looked fantastic out there, and now he's going to enter his bye week. He's going to enter his bye week, and he comes out with a ton of great matchups. A Giants bottom 5 run defense, a Panthers bottom 5 run defense, a Raiders bottom 10 run defense. The Chargers is a tough matchup, but then he goes into the fantasy postseason. Great matchup against the Cowboys. Another awesome matchup at home to end the season off against the Carolina Panthers. So 5 out of his next 6 games are awesome matchups. So I understand if you want to hold on to him, but the point of this is to sell high because there is still some concerns with his profile. And those concerns are that he's still operating as the running back 2 in this offense behind Rachaad White. If we look over the last 3 games, since Rachaad White has become more involved in the offense and just gotten healthier, he's playing 58% of the snaps according to Fantasy Life. He's seeing, you can see right here, just 29% of the rush attempts, but a lot of this is because of Sean Tucker being factored in. He's really seeing, if you just look at the backfield carries, about 50% of them, but more importantly, he's earning 53% of the routes and 16% of the targets. Heck, Rachaad White's coming off of a game where he just saw an elite 26% target share. He's operating in the 2-minute offense, the long down and distance. He's getting the goal line and red zone carries right now, and that just caps the upside of Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving continues to have these explosive runs, otherwise it's going to be hard for him to put up big fantasy box scores. And the other important piece of this is once he comes out of his bye, Mike Evans could return, which means they might not lean on the running backs as often in the passing game. As I said, I'm a big fan of Bucky Irving in the way that he plays this year, and his rest of season schedule is great, but if you can upgrade him, he's my 76th overall player rest of season. If we scroll up a little bit, if you can upgrade him right now, trade him for Jacoby Myers, I would do that. I think Jacoby Myers is a more consistent piece as a number 1 option in his offense. Trade him for an Amari Cooper in some sort of package deal, a Wan'Dale Robinson, or not Wan'Dale Robinson, a Jalen Waddle that everybody is down on. I think these are all pretty nice trades, 1-for-1 for Bucky Irving or some sort of package deal. Now, this next veteran wide receiver I'm going to offer as a sell high, and people are probably going to get upset. Yes, you do not need to rinse your eyes out or put your glasses on. This is indeed Deebo Samuel, and I look, it's going to surprise you, but I think right now is a good time to test the market. And listen to what I'm saying here. Test the market on Deebo Samuel. That does not mean go sell him for absolutely nothing in a bag of potato chips. It means say, hey, are you interested in Deebo Samuel? What would you do? And see if there's a sell high offer in there that benefits you. Because look, Deebo's coming off of a fine game. He had 8 touches, 3 carries in this one coming out of the bye, 76 total yards, 12.6 fantasy points. points in a game where he doesn't score a touchdown against one of the weaker defenses in the NFL on the road in the Bucs. Like, this is a fine performance. It's nothing to go crazy about, 76 scoreless yards, but it is a nice performance. But my problem is, it goes without saying, Deebo Samuel's a rare and elite talent, but now with Christian McCaffrey back and a whole lot of other guys emerging in this wide receiver room, more on that in a second, it's kind of hard for Deebo to have consistent fantasy production, at least high-end production. First off, you get Christian McCaffrey back, not really looking like his full self in terms of just efficiency, but he gets 20 opportunities, immediately goes over 100 total yards, sees 6 catches on 7 targets. A lot of these short area targets are taking away from where Deebo Samuel would earn his targets. You get George Kittle, great season continuing, finds a touchdown in this one, only has 4 targets, still able to give you nearly 15 fantasy points. So like, these are the big names in the offense, but coming out of the bye week, we saw the wide receiver room develop with guys like Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings. And let's start with Juwan Jennings, who was honestly just a standout performance in week 10 for so many different reasons. You can see here the production that he had. 7 catches on 11 targets, 93 yards, puts up 16.3 fantasy points, but for the first time in his career, he operated as the X-outside receiver, the Brandon Ayuk role, and he operated it in a great way. He's a big receiver, has pretty good speed. He looked awesome out there. He looked like he could be the 49ers' number 1 receiver moving forward, and then Ricky Pearsall got more involved. He ran 71% of the routes coming out of the bye, their first-round rookie. He was looking good as well, had a downfield touchdown in this one, had 6 targets, the same amount as Deebo Samuel, puts up 17.3 fantasy points. Now, every single week, Ricky Pearsall is not going to have a deep touchdown. Every single week, Juwan Jennings isn't going to have 11 targets, so Deebo Samuel will get his weeks as well. They're just not going to be as consistent as we once thought when Brandon Ayuk went down about a month ago. So when I look at Deebo Samuel rest of season, he's still an elite player for me. He's a top 30 player. He'd be a 3rd-round pick if we redrafted today. But when I look at the guys above him, if I can get some sort of deal done right now for Aaron Jones across positions, give me that all day. Garrett Wilson off of a down game, CeeDee Lamb off of a down game with no Dak Prescott, I'd still take all of these guys over one Deebo Samuel. Maybe you put together some sort of package deal and you go up and get like a Jonathan Taylor or a Kenneth Walker at the running back position. Now, speaking of the running back position, I think this next guy, it's a good time to trade him away if you can right now for any type of decent upgrade. And that man's name is Austin Ekeler, and you might be laughing and being like, nobody's going to want Austin Ekeler, but have you seen how good Ekeler has been this year? Not just the past couple of games, right? The past 2 weeks when Brian Robinson has been out, Austin Ekeler has gone out there and he's been productive. Over the past 2 weeks, Ekeler has averaged 14 touches per game and scored 3 total touchdowns. But it hasn't just been these past 2 contests for Ekeler. By the time you're watching this, he might have already played on Thursday Night Football. Regardless, hopefully he had a decent game, enough to continue to sell high, but regardless, check this out. On the season now, Austin Ekeler, if you go through his game logs on Player Profiler, just look at this right here. 10 plus points, if we just scroll through this, 10 plus points, we can keep scrolling here, and every single game but 2. So he's had 10 or more points this season in 7 out of his 9 games. And now he's coming off of back-to-back season highs with Brian Robinson out of the lineup. He just had 18.1 points, scored a couple times, 17.3 the week before that, looked really good, looked really efficient on the ground, and efficiency has been kind of his name of the game this year. Believe it or not, this could be kind of just a trivia question. You tell your friends at the bar or in the group chat. The man who leads the NFL in yards per touch this season at the running back position is Austin Ekeler. 6.1 yards per touch, number 1 in the NFL. Top 10 if you just look at what he's doing as a pure rusher. He has been great. And now, yes, the reason you would want to sell high is because Brian Robinson is dealing with a hamstring injury and likely to return. He says, I think I have a great chance of playing. By the time you're watching this on later in the day, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, Brian Robinson might have already returned and had a great game on Thursday night. Who knows at this point? I don't know. We're recording this on Wednesday. But the point being is Ekeler is coming off of his best game on the season in a tough matchup against Pittsburgh, and this has been a guy who has been a productive flex play all year long. Like, even if Brian Robinson returns in the fantasy manager in your league that you're trying to trade with knows that, you could still say, yeah, but this guy gets you at least 10 points. He's averaging like 13 to 14 points a game. Even with Robinson there, he has a very strong role in one of the best offenses in the NFL. Like, I think he's a very strong player to have on your roster if you can't get a deal done, but at the end of the day, can you just upgrade Austin Ekeler, my 96th overall player rest of season, for a more startable asset moving forward? Cedric Tillman in some sort of package deal. Juwan Jennings, 1-for-1, could be a possibility for you, or in some sort of package deal. You keep going up. Rome Odunze, I think, could be somebody that pops off with a little bit with the new offensive coordinator rest of season. I would trade him for sure 1-for-1 for a Cortland Sutton in some sort of package deal. Even Romeo Doubs, who I think is massively underrated. These are all names that you can just get consistent flex options now that Brian Robinson is returning. You're not going to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. They know Robinson is returning. Just try and get some sort of decent deal done where it benefits both sides. Usually trading a running back to a team that needs one in return for maybe a receiver or a tight end, if you need one, could get that done. So these have been the players that you should be trading away before week 11 and possibly your trade deadline hits. Now, if you want to see the players you should be trading for, we talked about some in this video, but the running backs, the wide receivers, those videos went out earlier in the week. Check those out. And before you go, the gentleman's agreement, you made it this far. You probably enjoyed the video, found that helpful. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. These videos take a lot of time, 6 to 8 hours to prep. So if you hit the subscribe button, it goes a really long way. Appreciate you all in advance, and I'll see you in the next one.